Hi everybody, Josh here, and I just wanted to show you something today that I believe God revealed to me like a month, maybe 2 months ago, and it has to do with science today. So actually it's going to be some physics that we're going to be talking about, but I'm not going to throw any equations at you, so don't feel intimidated at all. Actually, it was just, this is the result of one day. It was on a Sunday before church. I had woken up pretty early, not too sure why, but I felt like I needed to spend that time with God, so I got into the Word and I was reading and read a little bit of scripture and then was praying, and then after that just got on my phone and I was actually delving into the world of quantum physics, and for whatever reason I came across this and I believe God showed me something. So what I'm going to introduce to you is actually the result of a couple hundred years of experiments in physics. This being one that was started in 1801 by Thomas Young. Is called the double slit experiment, which in which he was just looking at what light does. He was looking at the physics of light. So back then they wanted to see whether light was acted more like particles being carried out through the air, or whether it was just waves of light, which was kind of theoretical at the time. They didn't know whether it was a wave or just a particle. So just to start out, just as an introduction, just wanted to tell you, like, the world that we live in this science here has to do with the world of classical physics. Now back then he was doing this experiment just to try to figure out something in classical physics. Classical physics is the world around us, the way that we understand it. We understand when we throw a ball up in the air and it comes down and we grasp it in our hand, that there are forces that govern that we know when we throw the ball up in the air, it's going to come back down, it's going to land in our hand. We know about things like inertia, about force, and everything like that. So that's all in the world of classical physics. And I believe that God put all these things, all those forces in place so that we can understand it, so that it's understandable to us. But there's another layer of physics going on underneath everything at the macroscopic scale, like with atoms, particles, photons, electrons, stuff like that, that is largely governed by God. You know, everything in this universe is governed by God. He has his fingers in every little thing, and we take for granted, I think, a lot of these things. We just see the world around us. We see trees, we see grass, we see all these laws that govern all these things, and we don't necessarily see God in it. But when you start getting down to the macroscopic scales and looking at atoms and photons and things, it's really easy to see how, like, God makes all these things happen. It doesn't all the time make sense to us in the way that classical physics does. And so I'm going to be showing you one way in which scientists have discovered that things don't necessarily add up with stuff in quantum physics the way that it does here in our world. So this is the double slit experiment, like I said. If you want to look this up, you can look it up at any time. You can go to the library and look up anything. Everything that I've said is through my own research, largely on the internet, but there's also a lot of books that will back up everything that I'm going to be telling you. So please, if you doubt anything that I'm saying, please look it up. Do your own research. But anyway, we're going to get to it. What Thomas Young was doing was he was trying to, he set up a source of light right here, and there's one wall that you can see right here. Now when he first did it, he had only one slit in the wall. It's like a vertical slit, and you can imagine light as it goes along from the place where it is and it hits that slit. On the other side of it, what it's going to do is it's going to create what they found was that light is more like a wave. It travels like a wave. You know, my hand is a dolphin thing, but but it's going to make ripples like waves would in water. Like if you dropped a rock into water, and it's going to create waves in going outward from that. So when it goes through that slit, it's gonna make waves. So when the waves go out and it hits this second wall here, basically the place where it's going to hit the hardest is right straight ahead. So what you get from one wave is you get one line here. Don't pay attention to any of this yet, but basically there would just be one line here where it hit hardest. So that's what's recorded on the second wall from that experiment. Now what's going to happen when you open up two slits is the light is going to travel. It's going to hit both of those slits, and from that you're going to get two waves. And what happens is you get two waves going out like this, and every place that they converge upon each other, it's going to make interference. And so you're not only going to have one line here on the wall beyond, but every place where these waves overlap, it's going to make more force when it hits that wall. So every place where they overlap and they come and hit that wall, it's going to create a line like this. So you're going to have basically what they refer to as an interference pattern on that wall here, just looking like that, and that's from waves. Now, closer to our timeline, modern physicists have done this at the macroscopic scale with electrons, and basically what they have is they have a little gun or a little laser that shoots electrons, pew 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 pew, and it shoots it at those two slits, and it goes through, and it made the same interference pattern that that light does. And they were kind of, like, okay, they didn't know, they, I guess, didn't expect that. They thought they didn't expect it to do that. It acted like light would. It was like a wave. And so then they wanted to see, and this is where it gets creepy, is they wanted to see whether the same thing would happen if they sent one electron through at a time. So they just took the laser and they shot one through at a time. And the crazy thing that happened at this point was that it over hundreds and hundreds of electrons being shot through those slits. Each electron was either going through this side or this side, and it went out and it just struck one part on the board. But after a while, it created the same interference pattern. And that completely doesn't make any sense. Like I said, things on this scale, things on the at the quantum scale, do not make sense the way that things make sense in classical physics. So they didn't understand. It didn't make any sense to them. So then what happened after that was they wanted to see where those electrons were going. So they set up a device right here before the first screen, to measure, to basically see where it went through, to know where that electron was going to go through and which slit it was going to go through. And when they did this, basically they were surprised that what happened was the electron went from acting like a wave to acting like a particle. Basically the same. It did the same thing that would happen if you just threw a ball through the slits. It just went straight on forward, and it just made two slits right here like this. It didn't make an interference pattern. It just went straight through. So the big question since then has been why does that happen? And everybody has theories as to why that happens. There are many quantum theories as a result of that, as to why, just because it's being observed, the electron does something completely different than when it's not being observed. And when I saw that on that Sunday morning, when I saw this, it was crazy for me, because growing up with the faith that I do, knowing that God is sovereign over all things, I saw this as He was right there, as those scientists were, just like He's everywhere. in the world around us, and he made those electrons go where they did. So what it sounds like to me, and this is just my opinion, but I was struck by this thought that what if God is making that happen? What if he doesn't want those scientists to know why those particles are behaving the way that they're behaving? Excuse me. What if every time it's being watched, God is changing the result? And I think that's what's happening here. Now that's just, my quantum theory. But I just wanted to share with at least my church body. I wanted to share this with you guys. I think that it's important when God reveals things to us like this, that we do share it with the. I want our faith to be strengthened. And when God shows us things, I believe it's really important to share it. That's why I'm gonna put it on the YouTube channel. I want to start making regular videos like this. But yeah, I was definitely I was on fire after I saw this, and I hope it hits you the same way that it did me. It's unbelievable when you find God in something that you have never seen him before in. And it's kind of sad at the same time. It's kind of sad that we go out in nature, we see trees, we see all of God's nature, and we don't all the time think that God is in all of that. We don't see it. We're so used to seeing it our whole lives that we don't necessarily enjoy it for what it is, and we don't always see God in it. But just wanted to share that with you today. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and leave a comment. Press the like button. Subscribe to our channel, New Hope Church, Camden, Michigan. And I will be talking to you sometime soon. Thanks.